Good morning and welcome to a Sunday early morning live DutyRon Crime Time with Ed Wallace video. Guys, we are two retired New York City police detectives with 20 plus years of law enforcement. If you like all things true crime related from that police perspective, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon and this guy, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Today, we're going to have a special guest, Brian Entin, the senior news correspondent. He is with NewsNation. Brian Entin, we know and love him, respect him. He reports on everything from Gabby Petito right up into here in the current day and age of cases that we're covering. Brian Entin and NewsNation, they bring fact-driven, unbiased news reporting, and that's what we love about him. Right, Ed?
Absolutely, absolutely.
How you doing this morning? Where are you? Are you in an undisclosed location again, Ed?
No, I'm in Pennsylvania, in my sister-in-law's house. We came up here right after I flew home yesterday from Salt Lake City because we're picking up the dog after we do the show.
We're getting a dog.
Yes,
Yeah.
Kara's coming home. Kara's coming home.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so Ed, we can't wait for you to get Kara home and acclimated into the Wallace residence, and then we got to have some Kara cam. We gotta check out the dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of our Patreon supporters, the channel members, the folks who positively engage, the ones who subscribe and like the videos and leave us messages, we want to just take a moment to say thank you to the live Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all of the chatters who engage. We're streaming on 7 platforms today. So I want to just say thank you to each and every one of you who are here and present and hanging out with us. Brian Entin is going to be joining us shortly. He is going to be traveling, so he's going to be live from the airport. So he's going to come into us remotely from the airport. We had some changes in the time. It was supposed to be 11. One time it was going to be 1, and then 2, and then back to now to 10. So we've had so much communication back and forth because he is a busy guy. But today I want to talk to him about Vicky White, Casey White, the case, all of his interactions with the people. Don't forget, Brian Entin interviewed Vicky White's mother. He went and interviewed a recently released female prisoner who had some conversation and thoughts about Vicky White. He went around to community. He went to the Hotel 41. He went to the jail over in Lauderdale in Alabama. This guy has been interviewing and traveling from Alabama to Tennessee to Indiana and then to Texas to cover the Lopez case. Now probably traveling up to Buffalo. And as we're speaking about Buffalo, I want to say my heart and prayers on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon, Ed Wallace, and the community here, to all the victims and all the folks in that community, the first responders, the people in the Tops grocery store, and everyone affected by this mass shooting. Prayers and strength go out to them, right, Ed? We are,
Absolutely, and especially our fellow brother in law enforcement, retired, who lost his life trying to stop this nut.
Yeah, a Buffalo police officer who was loved by the community, loved by everybody, a long time police officer, and then retired security guard at that top grocery store location. He engaged that perpetrator, the 18-year-old. We're not going to even give him any credit here. And he engaged him, and it was, a fail because of the armor that he was wearing. But listen, we want to just show you a couple of things because I want to talk to you about the car wash manager, James Stinson. We know that he came out, Ed, you and I were reviewing the footage. We went over, and when it was first released, that still picture, and people were like, oh, maybe it's not him. We saw the tattoos. We saw the ears, right?
Yes.
Those ears. And we were like, wait a minute. We've looked at hundreds, perhaps thousands of mugshot photos and I've done so many lineups in my career. I knew right away that was him. But the reason we had those images is because of this man. So I'm going to play a little piece from Brian while we're waiting for him. This was his first interview with James at the car wash, so one of his very first interviews. So let's play this. This is Brian Entin. This is going to be our guest coming up. So for those of you who are waiting, please be patient. He'll be here. Consider keep giving poll. I have a poll up there. Who thinks Casey White shot Vicky White. I want to see what the poll is right now. Last time I checked was 74, 15, and 11. 74% no, 15 yes, 11 undecided. So keep voting, and we're going to reveal the results of that at sometime in this show.
We started out the morning in Tennessee. We were trying to find the people who discovered Vicki and Casey White's getaway car there, the SUV that they started this whole saga with almost 2 weeks ago. When we got the tip that there was something brewing in Evansville, Indiana, which is about 2.5 hours from where we were in Tennessee, it was believed that Casey and Vicki were spotted here, and then we found out they indeed were. At this car wash behind me, they were spotted on surveillance camera by the manager here, who's really the reason this entire thing ended today. It ended with the police chase and Vicki and Casey White now apprehended. I want to bring in the manager of this car wash, James Stinson. Thanks for being with us, James. You really are the reason all this came to an end, and this has just been a wild week and a half. Tell me what you first spotted here at the car wash.
Yeah, I first noticed on last Tuesday, a truck sticking out of the car wash bay. It's always unusual when one's sticking out. So I come over and looked at it, and I left. So, and this is about 4 in the afternoon on Tuesday, 4:30. So I left. Every time I'd leave and come back, the truck's still there. I leave, come back, the truck's still there. Leave and come, even up late at night, the truck's still there. I go in, go to bed. I get up at 6 o'clock the next morning to take my granddaughter to school. The truck's still there. So I think I need to investigate. Once I get her to school, she gets out of my truck around 7:30. I'm gonna come back and check it out. I come back, I walk up to the truck, I notice the windows are down, and my first thought is could be this guy from Alabama. He might be in there asleep, passed out, suicide, whatever. I'm kind of nervous about it, so I looked over in the truck. Nobody's in it. I opened the door. The keys are in the ignition, which I thought was unusual. I tried to start the truck. The truck started right up, so I know there wasn't nothing wrong with the vehicle. So I left. I come back out. I got on my phone. I Googled the local police department's phone number because I didn't want to call 911. So I called them. I said, you need to send an officer out. I got a suspicious vehicle in my car. We'll have one right out. I go back to the bike. I'm dumping my trash. He never shows up. I got to go back and pick my granddaughter up at 10:30. I get her home. I come back. And my buddy's here and said they ain't never showed up. I called them back. I said, police officer never showed up. They said, yeah, they either had, he pulled up and he run the plates, it ain't stolen.
So it wasn't stolen.
That's what he
That's interesting because that's new. We didn't know that. So maybe they bought it. Perhaps they bought it.
No. It could be that. But I had him get out and he looked inside the car and he said, oh my God, there's a gun lock. There might be a gun in there. No, there ain't no gun. He done the same thing. He stuck his key in it, and it started. So he said, I can't help you. It's not reported stolen. So I said, I know what to do. I'll call Tri-State and I'll have it towed. I can't have it here. So I called Tri-State. They come after. Yesterday at 8 o'clock in the evening, the U.S. Marshal called me from Alabama. And they asked me, said, did you have a car towed from your car wash? I said, yes, I did. And I said, it's got to do with that guy from Alabama. He said, yeah, we're pretty sure it is. And I said, where do you have it towed to? He said, Tri-State. And he said it was reported stolen.
And you spoke.
And what I said, and I told him, I said, that police officer told me it wasn't reported stolen. I said, what I'm thinking, they stumbled up on the car with the keys in it, so they just stopped out and took it. They probably don't even know it's gone yet. And that U.S. Marshal said, you're exactly right. That's exactly what happened.
And you went back and looked at the surveillance video. You saw Casey and Vicki. You showed me the video earlier of Casey White by the truck in the vehicle bay. But you apparently, do you also have video of Vicki?
I've got video of a woman in a car, a short woman. You can't make out who it.
All right. The rest of this is history. We all know, again, that Brian Entin, interviewed this manager at the car wash. He, in my eyes, as a law enforcement professional, Ed and I have spoken about this. I spoke to Jennifer Coffendorfer about it. We all in the law enforcement community, now we don't have access to the case file for the U.S. Marshals. We do not have case files for everybody and anybody who is investigating this case. So we don't know what they had prior to this information. I just want to say that because that's only to be fair. You got to say that. But we asked the public, if you see something, say something. And that's what James said here. And that's what he did. Ed, I know you and I are on the same page with this, but we have Brian Entin. He just joined us. So I want to bring him in because he's got limited time.
Yes,
So
sir.
without further ado, Brian Entin, thank you so much for joining Crime Time with DutyRon. I'm honored. It's a pleasure to have you here, Brian.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored too. Thank you for having me. I've heard about your show for a long time.
Good morning, Brian. Where you at?
So I'm actually at the airport in Dallas. I've been covering this escapee like 2 hours outside Dallas in Centerville, and I'm flying today to the border to work on a story this week. So it's been kind of crazy.
Okay. Yeah, I know how it is to fly all over the place. So I just flew back from Salt Lake yesterday.
Yeah.
So Brian, I just want to quickly, I mean, everybody here in the audience, they were all just chomping at the bit to get it, to have you come on here. He is the senior national correspondent for NewsNation, and congratulations on that bump up, Brian. Well deserved. The coverage that you bring to us is invaluable. So I want to just say thank you to you and NewsNation and your whole staff who bring us the fact-driven, unbiased coverage of all of the news. So thank you. We tip our caps to you as prior law enforcement professionals.
Yeah, so thanks. I appreciate it. We're trying to do something different. People are sick of CNN and Fox, so we're trying to just kind of do straight news and cover a lot of the crime stories too, and the missing people and all of that. So hopefully, it seems like people are enjoying it.
Yeah.
Well, for guys like us, it's important because you're getting good facts out that normally wouldn't get out.
Yeah. Brian, I wanted to ask you, I'm going to put you full screen. What was your take? I mean, listen, we know you've covered from Gabby Petito to Harmony Montgomery and all the tough cases, the missing persons that turn into ultimately criminal investigations. You've covered this case, Casey White, Vicky White. What's your take on there was so much misinformation being reported, not by the news, but by law enforcement authorities, because it is a fluid case and things happen and they're quick to get information out to you guys in the press and the news. What was your take on this case? Is it like anything like you've ever seen before?
No, I mean, it was pretty wild. I mean, you guys are in law enforcement, so you know how uncommon it is for someone sort of on the inside to turn like that. So, from the beginning, I think there was sort of a fascination with the case, especially because Vicki, was apparently such a good employee for almost 2 decades. By most accounts, most of her coworkers really liked her. They respected her. The sheriff said she was a model employee. So I think there was sort of like a fascination, like what would cause someone like that to turn on all of her coworkers, and then also to betray her family, because obviously, her family trusted her. We talked to a couple of different people that she's related to, said, she was like the person in the family that everyone would go to if they had a problem and that kind of thing. So from the very beginning, it was like a case I had never covered before, just because that sort of side of it was just so mind-boggling. Like, why would she throw all of that away?
Yeah. And you did get a chance to go into Vicky White's mother's home and interview her. What was that like? I know we saw all of the Officer of the Year awards, and she was proudly displaying all of her daughter's accomplishments in the corrections field. What was the feel there? I mean, I know she was distraught, probably her mom, but everybody that you spoke with, it seemed like they were all in just disbelief. It was just a complete shock that she would do something like.
Yeah, I talked to her mom. I actually didn't go in the house, but we talked to her like outside on her front porch. And this was before the ending. So the mom did, this is when Vicki was still alive. And yeah, her mom just said, this isn't the daughter that I knew. The family is, I think, really embarrassed because, they live in a rural area. Everybody knows each other. So it's quite embarrassing for them. And yeah, I mean, her daughter was going to be Corrections Officer of the Year this year. She's supposed to get the award, I think, this week. They were having the awards ceremony. And I don't know if you saw any pictures from the funeral yesterday. Vicki's funeral was yesterday in the afternoon, but there were hundreds of people there, a lot of sheriff's deputies, people in uniform, which was just interesting to see, having covered the whole manhunt. you know, to see that all of her coworkers actually went to her funeral. And like, I think it just shows that, you know, people are complicated. Situations like this are complicated. It's not clear cut. I mean, I think people who worked with her can be upset with what she did, but at the same time acknowledge that, you know, they had a good 16 or 17 years working with her and still, you know, appreciated her as a person. So it's just interesting how these situations are complicated, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that being said, Brian, I know that you interviewed the sheriff from Lauderdale County, and you also interviewed the sheriff Wedding from Indiana. What was the two? It seemed like a stark contrast between the two. One was a tough-nosed bull, you know, a kind of like bull kind of guy, and the other one was kind of, you know, laid back, 40 plus years of service. What was your feel on the two of them?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head describing them. I mean, Sheriff Singleton in Lauderdale County, super, super laid back, very, very accessible. He's retiring, I think, in January. There's actually a sheriff's race right now happening in Lauderdale County. So, you know, he knows he's retiring soon. And he, you know, was a super nice guy. And, you know, he was betrayed. I mean, you know, there's photos of him, you know, at luncheons with Vicki. I mean, he was her boss for so long and promoted her. So on top of, you know, leading this whole investigation, trying to find her, he also was sort of struggling personally with being betrayed by this, you know, longtime employee. And then the sheriff in Indiana, in Evansville, Indiana, Sheriff Wedding, you know, also, I didn't spend quite as much time with him, a couple of press conferences. But you know, he was pretty open. I mean, I know that there's some frustration there that some of the press conferences didn't, you know, immediately thank James, and people were kind of upset with him. But he later put out a letter on their website where he acknowledged, you know, that James was pivotal to solving the case.
You know, I know Ed has questions for you as well, and I just asked the question that he was going to ask you, so I apologize to my partner.
No worries.
I just couldn't help myself because that was just bothering me so much. I wanted to hear your take on it. I know you're a professional. You deliver. Your delivery is great. But I just really, for me, I knew that he was not going to run for re-election. That was in November of 2021. He made that decision. This Vicky White situation had no bearing on whether this man was going to go for re-election. But if he was to be going for re-election, this would be, again, as you said, at the funeral were her colleagues. That is a testament to the brotherhood of law enforcement and how tight-knit they were before this incident happened. You know, we're all human beings and we get frustrated and upset with people's actions. But I think the people who worked with her knew that she had moments of not thinking clearly and making bad decisions. We all make bad decisions. If I told you I was perfect or Brian was perfect or Ed was perfect, we'd be full of it. So the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we have to say that it is a sad situation that someone would take their own life. We talk about this on this channel, suicide awareness and prevention. It afflicts many people, and it has to do with their day-to-day lives. And I think Vicki, had a lot going on, and a lot more than what we probably know. And unfortunately, sometimes people keep that a secret. Ed, I'm going to let you ask the questions, and I'm going to shut up.
Brian, when you were doing your reporting on this, and you're basically an investigative reporter, when you were doing your investigation, was there anything that just come out and shocked you?
I mean, there was a lot that shocked me about this case. I'm trying to think. I think I just go back to Vicki. It just didn't make sense when we first started covering it in the very beginning. You know, a lot of people were wondering, gosh, did he take advantage of her? Did Casey take advantage of her? You know, was she threatened? Was her family threatened? And that's why this all happened. And someone told her family, if you don't do this, you're going to be hurt. And even the sheriff in the very beginning was kind of open to that. But I think it just got more and more sort of surprising as the days went on, and you could tell the sheriff was changing his tune and accepting it, and just finally came out and said, look, like we now know Vicki was the mastermind. Like this was willing. And the sheriff even said, I mean, he just flat out said it, Casey White, he didn't believe is smart enough to pull this off or to even come up with any of the plans. He's like, Vicki is smart enough, very calculated. So I think that's what shocked me the most, just sort of as it took that turn. And then the other thing that really, one of the moments, like, I guess we're covering these different stories, there's always like a couple moments where, I'm sort of really taken aback. And I think in this story, it was when we heard the little bit of audio from that 911 call where you could hear Vicky's voice. And I can't remember the exact transcript, but she said something like, you know, get back to the hotel or run. And just to like hear her and hear like how into it she actually was, and how involved she actually was, just was kind of surprising, you know?
Yes. And were you kind of taken back? I mean, I was a little taken back, let me put it this way, by some of the disinformation that was coming out from law enforcement. It seemed like, some of the press conferences that were being given, the information wasn't very accurate. And it turns out, and I was like, well, why are they giving this information out if they didn't dot their I or cross their T? Did you find that?
A little bit. I sort of got the sense that Sheriff Singleton in Alabama wasn't, I mean, while he was the sheriff, I don't know that he was always in constant communication with the marshals, who it seemed like, towards the second half of the whole manhunt were really kind of in charge of the whole thing. So sometimes we would get some information from the marshals that Sheriff Singleton didn't even really know about yet. So yeah, there were a few times I was surprised, but at the same time, I mean, I was in Florence, Alabama for quite a while. It is a really small town, and I know that's no excuse. But it's a very, very small sheriff's office. I mean, you guys have been to some of these really, really small departments. I mean, it's just, it's a different feel, it's a different pace. Like, people were also very hard on them about, well, why weren't there 2 corrections officers? That was out of protocol. How could Casey just get out with 1? How did no one notice? How'd they get away with it?
And Brian, yes, we pointed out too, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Ed and I pointed out too, and this is something that we don't expect the media to know this, because it's things that we, as law enforcement professionals, visiting jails to pick up prisoners, to take them out. I worked in the Fugitive Enforcement Division. Ed was in crime scene. Those Sallyport gates, when they were open and she walked him out with her back to him, most people didn't pick up on this, but they were both wide open. They're supposed to be closed. When you exit any facility with an inmate, whether it's 1 or 15, you are supposed to be in that Sallyport area with those gates secured, and a person inside the control room opens them once you get the person secured in the vehicle. That did not happen there. And Sheriff Singleton is not an investigator. He's not a guy that investigates homicides, investigates crimes. He investigates what goes on in his jail. So that's the thing that people didn't realize. They were like, how come he doesn't know about this? Well, he wasn't in charge of the investigation of trying to capture and figure it. That was the U.S. Marshals, the FBI, local, and the feds. So the bottom line is he was definitely out of his league when it came to this, coming out and trying to investigate all the details of what happened. But he certainly could have provided what led up to her getting him out, like who signed her out, who checked the prisoner, things of that nature. He's definitely going to have that information. But when it comes to going and hunting these 2 down, he wasn't a part of that.
Yeah, and they're going to obviously have to go back and review their protocols and make some major changes, because obviously it was like a big breakdown in their system.
Yes. And it seems like the sheriff in Indiana, he was very happy to quickly get it out of his jurisdiction and push it back down to Alabama. And having said that, but do you think maybe that they put that car in the car wash there for someone to steal it?
Maybe. I mean, that's another part that I never really understood. And you guys might have a better theory than me, but, as careful as they were in some ways, why would they park it right there in the bay where I mean, I was there. There's so many visible cameras. That place had like a ton of cameras just right there. And why would they leave it right in the bay like that? And he was just walking around, like, not really trying to hide himself at all. The keys were still in the truck. So yeah, maybe they were thinking someone would steal it. But yeah, that part didn't really make sense to me.
No, I gave them a bit too much credit. I don't know. I mean, the initial planning to get him out, okay, but then everything that happened afterwards is like whatever their plan was fell apart.
The only thing I could think of there is, Ed and Brian, is that they were trying to create maybe a diversion. If someone stole that truck and they weren't thinking enough to even look up and see that there was cameras there. The guy loaded himself with all the weapons, put him down. We could see that perp walk as he was holding his sides and walking to the back, looking around. He had the gun stuffed down his pants. If somebody would have approached him at that point, there would have been a massive shootout. It would have been really bad. So he loaded up, left that truck there in hopes that someone would have stolen it. and then the cops would go follow that truck and put them, and they would give them advantage because they could go one way and they could be searching for the truck in another. That's the only thing that I could think of there. Brian, I wanted to
and even that he didn't cover his tattoos, I thought was weird. Like,
yes, exactly right.
You'd think Vicki would have gotten him a long sleeve shirt or something if they were really trying to be careful,
Yeah, sloppy. Dumb prisoner, dumb criminal of the year award goes to Casey White. That's for sure. And Vicki wasn't planning. But again, this is all probably stuff that was happening, and they were getting changes in their plans and things of that nature. But I wanted to say, and I wanted to tip my cap to you, Brian, because you asked the sheriff in Indiana about the reward money. And I know that you have a soft spot for James, the manager of the car wash. I really feel that in this situation, had we not had this video and the information that he provided, that if in fact they didn't have this advanced information, the Cadillac and so forth, they wouldn't have been able to capture this guy. And it was just a chance situation of an off-duty detective from another department saw the bolo based on the Cadillac and called it in. He was on his way home. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, with James, I like to think I'm a pretty good reader, judgment of character. I mean, he's a really good guy from what I can tell. He never has said to me, like, I really want the reward, or how do I get that money? I mean, of course he would like the reward, who wouldn't want the money, but he's not pushing for it. I think he's just sort of overwhelmed with all the attention, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, were there other things at play? Yes. Did they apparently know that this truck was the truck that they were in? Yes. But at the end of the day, James called the local police, the Evansville police, to tell them that the truck was in the vehicle bay. And something still doesn't make sense to me. So like the local police came out and James has looked at the truck and said, okay, well, it's not our job to tow it. So just call up the tow people and you'll have to have it towed yourself. So like if they knew what truck they were looking for, why would the local police have said that? And James had to have the truck towed himself. So that never really made any sense to me. But at the end of the day, when the marshals came back to his business later, he showed them the video. This was days later, told them they were in the Cadillac. So yeah, I mean, James is definitely at least part of the puzzle here. And I just think like it will send a bad message if I'm always going on TV saying, here's a reward, please talk to police. Like I'm not sure it sends a good message if they don't actually give people the money.
Yeah, Ed, any thoughts on that of what Brian was saying about the because I know you spent over 15 years in the crime scene unit in elite New York City Police Department. Any reason why the police would say, well, you have to tow it on your own? I mean,
it's obviously some kind of miscommunication. Where was the bolo? Did they not get that bolo on the truck? And he ran the truck. Okay, if he runs the truck, it goes through NCIC. If that bolo was there, it should have hit. Okay, so I don't understand how it didn't hit. But okay, he ran it through, to see if it was stolen. But apparently it wasn't stolen. No. It was purchased. Right. Okay, but that's not the point. The point is that there should have been a bolo out to be on the lookout for this vehicle, put out either by the U.S. Marshals or the Sheriff's Office from Alabama, and because they had at least the Marshals had the information on the truck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just all of it was confusing, and again, as retired law enforcement professionals, we kind of get the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. Like, how many people just abandon vehicle places. We don't just take them into custody if they don't have any hit on it. So this truck was clean, and that's why that officer left. And then he came back and found that Glock speed loader, that little plastic speed loader. They first reported it as a gun lock. It wasn't a lock. It was the plastic. I have one with my Glock. So it's just a quick speed loader.
I kind of wonder if it's going to come down to a technicality too, because I was reading through some of the, kind of fine print. I don't know, because James called the local police initially and did not call the marshals, if that's going to somehow impact whether or not he gets a reward. I kind of have a feeling that might be part of it.
Yeah, but the award was being offered by the state of Alabama.
I think there was it was kind of like in different parts. Yeah, like it's like the state I think gave a certain amount and then the marshals gave a certain amount. And yeah.
We saw the district attorney down in Lauderdale County with Sheriff Singleton do a press conference inside a courtroom, it looked like, and he talked about upping the numbers for 15,000 for Vicki. I mean, 10,000 for Vicki, and then 15,000 for Casey. Thank you. But you know, again, it was for the arrest and apprehension of these two, and I think that he definitely did provide that, regardless of who he called, Brian. But you know, there's stipulations within that reward, and it's going to be straightforward. I think he will eventually get it in the best interest of the public, because you know, we want, as law enforcement, we want that. We need the help of the public, and when the public sees this, they get really upset, because you know, here you have someone doing their civic duty by making that phone call, and he said to you that the marshal said that they were on their way, that they were coming. So you know, I watched all the interviews that you did with him. There was like three or so of those interviews. Again, this is a case where people have this misinformation that's being put out by the authorities, then the news reports it, then there's redactions, and then there's changes. People say that out there, and this has nothing to do with the case, but he was the manager, not the owner of that car wash, correct?
Yeah, he was the manager. Yep. I think he kind of runs it. He lives close by, but no, he doesn't technically own it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's another thing too. If that officer only ran the plate and didn't take the time to run the VIN, now the plate should have came back with some information on whether it was registered to the truck or not, right? Yeah. And if it didn't, if there was no hit or something, then he should have looked at the VIN and ran the VIN as well.
Yeah, I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's over with now. You know, and again, here we had, you know, everyone was thinking Vicky White was driving the car initially, and then now we come to know that it was Casey driving that car. And when you hear the 911 and all of the different audio, you know, there's argument about OnStar. I mean, who's buying a used car and buying a subscription to OnStar when you're on the run? I don't think that there was OnStar activated in that car. What I do think is that sometimes when you call 911 and you're traveling and it is cross jurisdictions, they put you on hold and say they're going to put you to another 911. And we heard the police dispatch, we heard the 911 call, open phone, and people got confused of that. I have many times been in neighboring jurisdictions like Nassau County. If you're on the border of Nassau and New York City, you'll get New York City sometimes, and they'll put you on hold while you have an emergency, and they'll dispatch you to Nassau 911. So that's probably might have been something that was going on there. But again, these are little bits and pieces of what are, you know, the public is interested in, but not the police. The police just are interested in capturing the subjects, you know, and bringing them back.
I think that's a good point too, because at some of the final press conferences, like I was pushing on the reward, and people on social media were pushing on the reward. But like, I do think in that moment, they were just focused on the fact that they were wrapping up. They had just caught them. And again, like I'm trying to be patient, and I know people are upset, but like, you know, they're still wrapping up the case. I get that there is probably like some, you know, fine print they have to go through before the reward becomes, you know, the priority.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think the Indiana sheriff has anything to do with the reward. So
no. Definitely not. And that's why he blew off the question. When you asked it, he was kind of dismissive to you, Brian, because they were just like, hey, we just picked up these two dangerous people and got them off the street. Our job is done. Our job is done here. You know, let's move on. The reward, that's an Alabama issue and the U.S. Marshals. I got nothing to do with that. So
and you could see that because there could have been charges brought against Casey in Indiana, but he said, I want this guy out of here.
Pretty much.
And extradited him back to Alabama.
Yep. That was his attitude. Let's talk about Gonzalo Lopez quickly, because I know you got to run. You got an 11:15 flight. Gonzalo Lopez, 46, 6 foot tall, 197 pounds, a noted drug cartel associate. That is a scary situation. He was able to overpower a sheriff's, the driver, the two drivers from the Department of Corrections. I've never heard or seen someone able to get weapons that were able to cut through the metal. I've been in these buses. I know what these buses are. I have a photo of it. I'll show the audience after Brian leaves, because I don't want to waste time with showing videos while Brian's here. but those are not easy to get into. And for me, it's just smells and reeks. Something is not right here because he got searched at the facility. I'm guarantee you those driver and the security guy searches their prisoners before they put them in the bus. How was there a weapon planted in that vehicle? Was that thing cut out before they got in there and nobody noticed it? I don't know. But what's your take on this? This is another troubling prison escape.
Yeah, this is a crazy one. Someone was telling me they think this is actually unprecedented, the way that this went down. So
Oh, yeah.
again, like there's going to be a lot of questions about what went wrong, but the fact that he was able to, and the other interesting thing is when I first got here, they were saying he was in shackles and handcuffs. Yesterday, they were just saying he was in handcuffs. So it's going to be interesting. Was he actually shackled? They kind of changed the story on that a little bit, but yeah, managed to get out of the handcuffs, had some kind of, weapon that they're not sure what it was to cut into the cage, took over the bus, and the guy in the back of the bus, there was an armed officer in the back of the bus, and the armed driver, the guy in the back of the bus went out the emergency exit in the back and shot out the tires, so that the bus crashed and he took off. But what's interesting is yesterday we dug more into this guy's past. So he is in the Mexican mafia. He was in prison for killing a cartel member, and literally stabbing him to death with a pickaxe and then burying him 4 feet underground. And he's escaped before, like in 2004, I think it was 2004. He was on the run and they were searching for him, and a cartel member picked him up in a car and helped him evade capture. So some people are wondering, like, could there have been someone following the bus? This was planned out. But it seems like the working theory is that from the correction officers is that he is still in that area. They think he's like hiding out in the brush. So they're just, I guess they have this perimeter and they're just shrinking it and shrinking and shrinking it, hoping to get to it.
They were talking about closing the walls in on them. But
this, maybe you guys will have more insight into this, because like I was out there all day yesterday, like these corrections officers, and there's like 300 of them out there. Most of them that I noticed were not armed. So they're like stationed every 500 feet watching the wood line, and some of them just have pepper spray. And I'm thinking, like, here's this Mexican mafia member, like, is it just going to be like a fist fight with them if he tries to run out? Like, you know?
Yeah, those are probably volunteers or, like auxiliary police. We have them here in New York City. There's an auxiliary police department, and we use them at large demonstrations. We use them at parades and things of that nature. You never hear about using them when you're trying to capture a Mexican cartel member, or a drug lord. This guy is dangerous. He's a murderer. He has... again, with that instance where he killed the guy with the pickaxe, he buried him and then brought the authorities to where he buried him and told them, all right, you got me. But the bottom line is here, he tried to kill. If he would have he took that gun belt off of that driver, the prison guard, and they took his gun belt, but he just couldn't figure out how to maneuver it and get it out. It's got like that little, I don't even want to go into it here because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but basically he was unable to get that gun. If he was able to get that gun, we would be talking about a whole different set of circumstances here. But I do feel that, there's an extreme possibility that he has help from the outside, because this is not, you cannot use a prison-made shank to break the metal. You need like bolt cutters type stuff to get through this stuff. It's not built like crap. It's strong metal. So it makes me think as a possibility that this was already broken out and busted out for him. Because how could someone who just picked out of his shackles, if he had them, and his handcuffs, now start soaring through metal and nobody detect that? You're going to tell me that the driver's not going to hear that? The gate is right there. The driver is right beyond that gate. And if he was clipping things, you'd have to hear it.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to examine the metal itself to see what kind of tool marks are on there, and see if maybe there was some kind of epoxy put back on it to somebody cut it out, then put it back in place and epoxied it to make it look like it was good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
just like you see in a prison, inside a prison break, where they cut out a thing and then they put the vent in and then they just pull it out. So very good observation and possibility there, Ed.
Yeah.
Brian, I know your time is limited, and I really
I actually got to run because I gotta
Yeah.
run down to my gate.
I want to just say thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoyed this little conversation. And will you consider coming back again sometime?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And next time, hopefully, I'll have more time. Like I'll just be at home or something, or hanging in a hotel room or something. Sorry, the timing wasn't great on this.
Hey, there's about
Yes.
1,500 people here. Any final words for them? And I know Ed's got one more thing to ask you before you go. Any final words for your fans and the people who are out there that watch you?
Yeah, just thanks everybody for following along. Like it means a lot to me that everybody's keeping up with what I do, and especially like supporting NewsNation, since we are a startup and we're trying to do things differently. So everybody who watches, we really, really appreciate it. And also thanks for all the tips. Like it always amazes me, no matter what story I go to, I'll get like so many DMs from people who live in that area and have like information. So please keep doing that. It's like super, super helpful. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, congratulations on your promotion, and good luck with the rest of your career, and hope to see you soon. Keep up the good work.
I hope I get to be on again soon. I'll talk to you guys later.
Brian, make sure you follow me on Twitter so my direct messages don't go to spam.
Okay, I'll follow you right now.
Thanks.
All right.
I'll see you
See you
soon.
guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, bye.
Thank you. Ed, that was very informative. Brian Entin, senior national correspondent for NewsNation, just joined us for over 35 minutes. So that was really a treat, because he told me he only had 15 minutes. So, Ed, what'd you think? What a nice guy, right?
Yeah, great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the live chat. What did you guys think of Brian Entin here on Crime Time with DutyRon? He is a busy man, driving, traveling. We see him on the road. We see him on his Twitter account. I'm going to share his Twitter account for everybody to take a peek. Brian Entin is very active on social media. And here's his Twitter account. I'll go full screen with it so everybody could see. Let me get rid of my direct messages. We're always blowing up like crazy. Here's his latest on the Gonzalez. This is a minute and
Gonzalo
59.
Lopez has now been going on for more than 48 hours. They believe he is still in a 4-mile square area somewhere, a wooded rural area behind me. And basically, they've got a perimeter. They've got corrections officers stationed about every 500 feet, and they are shrinking that perimeter, hoping to get to Lopez. This all started on Thursday. Again, a wild scene. He's on the prison transport bus, manages to get out of his handcuffs. He breaks into the cage where the driver is driving the bus. He takes over the bus and crashes it, and one of the officers actually shoots out the tires of that bus, and that is when Lopez managed to get away into a wooded area. We learned today the last official spotting of Lopez was late on Thursday afternoon, so just hours after he escaped. One of the officers saw him sitting under a tree in his boxers, but there have been no official sightings since. We also learned today, which is quite disturbing, that the officers here believe that Lopez is a member of the Mexican mafia. Take a listen.
Lopez does have a long history in dealing with gangs, both on this side of the border, on the other side. Lopez was convicted of kidnapping and murdering an individual, torturing that person, and then beating them to death with a pickaxe because they didn't pay a ransom. So we know that he's dangerous. He's proven that. And so we're not going to be taking any chances.
And they aren't taking any chances. There are hundreds of law enforcement officers out here. They are still telling people in this area between Dallas and Houston to stay inside their homes. They believe this man is very, very dangerous, telling people to lock their doors to their houses and to their cars while this manhunt continues.
So there you have it from Brian Entin, the latest on this very, very dangerous escapee, Gonzalo Lopez, 46 years old. Ed, you know what was interesting about my takeaway is that he was talking about them using unarmed personnel, but they are every 150 to 200, I think, yards, they said, or something like that. They had persons posted along the roadway in case he came out. And that was what I watched last night.
Yeah, I saw it too.
And that reward is up to $50,000 now. So this was just from late yesterday. And Brian said he's heading down to the border. Maybe there's something brewing at the border of, the U.S. and Mexico. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. And what's his immigration status? Is he, I don't understand that. Why do we have them?
Yeah, I don't know. It was almost the same with the murder suspect of Miss Gall. Mrs. Gall here in Queens. He was 21 years illegally inside the United States, and he wound up stabbing her 58 times in the neck. So these violent criminals are walking around amongst us. It's a dangerous, dangerous world. I don't want to make everybody scared here, but you know, evil walks amongst us. What's your thoughts on that, Ed?
It's true. It's evil does walk amongst us, but like I say all the time at the end of the show, we have to be careful, be safe, be prepared, and keep our head on a swivel.
Yeah, 100%.
That doesn't mean you be paranoid, but understand what it is you're actually looking at. Because I could be, I said this time and time again. I have civilian friends and law enforcement friends, and sometimes I'm with my civilian friends, and I see things that they just don't understand or don't see and don't understand the danger of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, when you get complacent and you just, we always tell people, don't bury your head in your phone. Don't pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to what's happening on the news. Like some people I don't even want to read the news. I don't want to. It's important that we understand. This is 2 minutes. I want to play this. This is from Brian Entin, and they talk a little bit about, this is from later in the day. So it's late last night. I just want you guys to see this again on the escaped prisoner from Texas. Brian Entin, he's going to be on quickly, and then we'll get back into Ed and I have a video we want to show you.
$1 reward for information leading to the arrest of an inmate who stabbed a bus driver while escaping a prison transport. More than 300 officers are searching for Gonzalo Lopez. He's a man convicted on multiple charges, including murder. NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Entin is live in Texas with the latest on those search efforts. So, Brian, how does something like this happen?
That's the big question. It's pretty unbelievable that a prisoner would be able to get out of his handcuffs and basically take over a prison transport bus. But that's what's happened here. The manhunt continues behind me. They believe that Gonzalo Lopez is still here in this area, in a very heavily wooded area, rural area behind me. We are near Centerville, Texas, which is about halfway between Dallas and Houston. This entire thing started on Thursday afternoon when they were transporting prisoners in this area. They say Gonzalo Lopez managed to get out of the handcuffs, get to the front of the bus, break into the cage where the driver was, and actually take control of that bus. The last time they have an official confirmation of seeing him was a few hours after he escaped. They say that he was sitting under a tree somewhere in the area behind me, and he was in boxer shorts at that time. And we have learned today, we knew he was dangerous, but we learned more today that the officials here say that he is actually connected to the Mexican mafia.
Lopez is an individual that is dangerous. He has a disregard for human life. That's obvious from his convictions, and it's obvious from his escape. But I can tell you that TDCJ will not rest until Lopez has been captured. So this search will continue until he's back in custody.
And this is a dangerous man, Rudabeh. He has been convicted of murder in the past. They say that he killed a man with a pickaxe. And he's also been convicted in the past of shooting at sheriff's deputies. So they're not taking any chances right now, telling everyone in this area to stay inside their homes, keep the doors locked. The reward, just in the last little while, has now been increased to $50,000. Rudabeh?
Really dangerous. So how long do officers plan to stay out looking for him? We can see them behind you.
They say they have no plan to leave because they believe he's still here. So they've basically created a perimeter. We're told it's about 4 miles wide right now. There are corrections officers every 500 feet, and they're closing in on that perimeter, hoping that they catch him.
So there you go. For every 500 feet. I mean, I don't know how accurate that is, but if that's the case, you need a lot of personnel to do that. Unbelievable, Ed. This case and many others. 616 sent me a video of a female correctional officer that here. This is 616 Love. She sent me on Discord this morning that there was juveniles escaped.
Yeah, they caught them.
They did. They caught them.
Yeah, they're rolled back in custody.
Oh, good. And the guy in the Pacific Northwest is back in custody. The really bad guy that got out. And
you know, what I don't understand is how come this guy's still breathing?
Yeah.
Why wasn't he executed for the pickaxe homicide?
Yeah, I mean, again, and now he's out and free, roaming in society. We don't know where he is. Nobody knows. Everybody's scared. Everyone that lives in that area is scared. Brian's heading down to the Mexican border for, I don't know if it's a related story. I'd have to assume that it is. I didn't want to try to put him in a bad position and ask him those questions. But if I'm a gambling man, I say that it has to do with this story that we're talking about right here, right now. You know, could he have gotten back into Mexico? Ed, you and I, we're both going to say probably, or a good chance.
Well, if he had help from the cartel, yeah, absolutely.
If he's on foot and he's in what they're thinking and he's in that area, they're going to be able to close him in and get him. I hope and pray. Ed, before we wrap up, we're going to circle back to Vicky White and Casey White. We have some video that I'm sure people have seen. It was sent to me by a good friend and subscriber. It's a Google Doc. There was like 33 pages of reports from every officer. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to play in a few minutes for the audience?
Okay, well, two things. We have a video and we have a series of PDF reports of the interviews of the officers that were responded to the chase, and at the conclusion of the chase were there when the shots were fired. The one shot was fired. And so we're going to highlight, we're going to show you another view from the front of the vehicle as opposed to the views that we've seen from the back of the vehicle. And we'll see how Casey was dragged out of the car over the roof from the driver's side of the car. And that there's reports here that I'll read to you that state that they saw, the deputy sheriff saw Casey stick his hands out of the driver's window and then heard a shot after the crash. And so let's do that.
Yeah. So just so you know, we are, again, going to be showing you some more information that we kind of highlighted and looked at ourselves as investigators and said, hey, wait a minute. So if in fact he had his hands outside the vehicle, as per the statement of one of the police officers who responded there, and then the shot is heard, that would, correspond with the medical examiner's findings of self-inflicted gunshot wound. And I did the poll. I want to look at the poll results before we close this. And it looks like an overwhelming majority believe that he did not shoot Vicky White. And this is going to be further proof. Now, before I play it, it's going to be noisy, a lot of sirens, some graphic information, some graphic scenes here. So if you suffer from PTSD or anything of that nature, step out and come back. But it is going to be noisy. I'm going to try to lower the volume a little bit. But this is a back view. Go ahead, Ed.
All right, but I want to give you a little caveat, folks. Because of all the sirens and so forth, you can't hear all of the dialogue and the screaming, and you can't actually even hear the shot. But there's going to be a telltale sign that the shot was fired when you see two officers on the left side of the screen seek cover behind a pickup truck. Just watch for that. Okay.
And we could stop it and play it back too at that point, Ed. All right, here we go. I'm going to go full screen with it, but Ed, you and I will be audio will still be live. All right, here it is in its entirety. I lowered the volume. Just let me know if that's okay for everybody.
3M6 on dispatch. Industries.
Going through Anchor Industries, 3M6.
Just go and notify ISP. If they have a question, they can call my cell phone.
I was like, clear channel, in Anchor Industries parking lot. Clear on in Anchor Industries parking lot.
This guy's booking, man. You can hear his tires screeching.
East side of the parking lot, heading south. Clear on east side of the parking lot heading south.
You didn't even have a seatbelt on.
Back road towards 41. Approaching 41.
Yeah, click it now.
Back towards Baumgart. Clear on approaching Baumgart.
Open field along Baumgart and
Clear on open field along Baumgart.
crashed out.
County crashed out.
So it just said they crashed out.
Right. So right here at this point, the crash happened. They're in that ravine. And now he's now pulling up on the scene. You'll see him get out. This is the back. This is the opposite of, you know, of what we're used to seeing.
You see these two officers just run to the back of that truck, right?
Yeah, I just saw it.
Yeah. Go back, go back, go back.
Maybe I should shut the sound off.
Okay.
Back to here.
Right here. Okay, now.
That's a look straight down to the car there, right in between these two cars.
Mm-hmm. You see them moving. You see them move to the left.
Yeah.
That's probably where the shot was fired at that point. They all heard it. We couldn't hear it over the sound, and they sought cover immediately. That's a telltale sign that the shot was probably fired right there.
And sidestepping, that's a tactical move that we train with to kind of
see cover.
Right,
yeah.
to seek cover. So let's watch it again.
You can hear someone screaming, hands up, hands up.
Yeah, I did hear that. I got my headphone in.
There's the move.
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing that if you didn't hear or, you know, again, let's see it. I heard someone said on Facebook, Laura Barron said, I heard the shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back just again. I'll play it with full volume. It's going to be loud. It's kind of hard to make out, but I'm sure somebody with an audio enhancer could probably enhance that. I'm going to let the rest of this roll from here, Ed. All right, so he just holstered.
Yeah,
and
well, he did.
And you see these guys here, they're drawn down. That's the car. 1, 2. 2 that we could see are pointing directly at that car. 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, they're about to pull Casey out of the driver's door.
There he's coming now. Yeah, his hands are extended right here.
Mm-hmm.
And here's his body. This whole thing is him. 6'9".
Okay.
Yeah, he's asking for an ambulance. He said we need AMR right now. So he just runs back and shuts all the sirens off. So at that point, I mean, this deputy here couldn't have felt like there was a huge amount of danger. He's shutting off police cars. He goes back to this other one. He shuts the sirens off on him.
It's going to be 41 and come east on Birch.
I think the rest of this we could spare everybody the rest of this. Do you want this to play, Ed?
No. That was the point.
Yeah.
The rest we saw from the other angle, and it's all consistent. But now I'll show you the report.
Okay, and before you show it, this is one of the officers. Ed, again, could you just explain so nobody's confused on what we're going to show them?
Right. So all the officers that were on scene were interviewed, and this is the statement given by the officer one of the officers on scene about what he did, what he saw, and it's in this report that we'll get the information about Casey's hands being out of the window, the shot being fired, and in that time frame.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to share. What happened here? Let me start it over again. Share.
All right. So while Ed is getting that, I'm going to tell you that, again, this is just more affirmation that, along with the coroner's report, the medical examiner's report, that Vicky White did, in fact, turn the gun on herself. Now, people argue sometimes and say, oh, well, no, you shared it all, the whole screen, Ed.
Yeah, okay.
You won't share the whole screen.
All right, stop sharing.
Yeah, so you would just go to share and then window. Again, it's just more confirmation, and Ed's going to blow this up so everybody could see it. We'll go full screen with it.
Can everybody see it?
Yeah, I could see it good. Everybody in the chat see it well. Everybody in the chat could see the typing on here.
So I'm going to, if you can see where my hand is, I'm going to highlight it.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm going to just read this portion here. With my duty pistol pointed at the windshield of the vehicle, I could see a male driver attempting to stick his hands out of the driver's side window. I gave multiple commands to the occupants of the vehicle so as to have them show me their hands. Due to the tint on the windshield and the angle of the vehicle, I could not clearly see any other occupants inside the vehicle. While giving my verbal commands, I heard one gunshot come from inside the vehicle. TFO Bishop, TFO Robinson, and I approached the vehicle, to which I could see a male sitting in the driver's seat screaming for help. Multiple other TFOs had gained control of the driver's hands and were able to pull him from the driver's side of the vehicle. And that's what we just witnessed. As the offender was pulled from the vehicle, he made statements that his wife had been shot and that she had shot herself in the head. The offender was then placed in custody. I could see a small amount of blood on the back of the side of the offender's head, to which he stated he had been shot also. As task force officers were placing the offender into custody, I returned to my patrol vehicle to grab my tactical vest and containing a med pouch. The offender was adamant that he was okay and that he needed to tend to his wife.
That we needed to tend to his wife.
Yes.
And what officer does it name who the officer is on this report?
Officer Shaheen, Officer S. Shaheen.
Okay. So that's it in a nutshell. That's basically corroborating the hands out of the vehicle visibly and the gunshot going off. And that, along with the science, the medical science. Ed, do you want to talk just a tad bit? I know that you have to go as well. Do you want to talk a tad bit about gunshot residue, whether you feel, in your professional opinion, Did Casey White get gunshot residue testing on his hands? Would they or should they have done all of this stuff? And how do you feel about this?
It would be meaningless in this situation. And it's such a closed environment of the interior of a vehicle. When the gun discharges, those powders are going everywhere. So it's possible that it would have landed on his hands as well. And in addition, the officers had their guns out. Okay, and their guns contain gunpowder residue. No matter how clean you think your firearm is, most people don't clean their holsters. So when you stick your clean holster back into a dirty your clean gun back into a dirty holster, you're getting gunshot residue back on the outside of the gun. So when they drew their guns on Casey and then holstered and then put their hands on Casey to handcuff him, they could have transferred gunshot residue to his hands. So in this case, it's meaningless, and it's a trace transfer evidence. So, and I had this similar situation in the Puff Daddy case with the Jennifer Lopez in the Club New York shooting, why we shouldn't be doing gunshot residue in these cases. But specific cases of unaltered crime scene suicides, yes, that would be a good deal. But again, the way Miss White was pulled out of the vehicle by her hands, that was altered.
Right. And, this clears up a lot of misinformation by the public who doesn't really have a grasp of what gunshot residue of testing of the hands and so forth. I also myself, I'm not an expert like you, but I started doing my research on it, and exactly what you said. It's powdered, sprayed all over the place. The headline is going to have it, his shirt and his pants, and then you have transfer. If he brushed up against her, or he touched her, or she touched him, or whatever the case may be, and everything gets contaminated.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's specific tests that we do. It's a scanning electron microscope test. We stub the hands, we stub the face, we stub those areas, and they take the stubs, they put it in a scanning electron microscope. Now, what they're looking for is a molten sphere of 3 heavy metals: barium, antimonium, and lead. And the only way you can get that is from the primer residue of a center fire cartridge case. Such as our 9mm, 40 cals, 45, so things of that nature. So, but like I said, it's floating in the air. It can land on anything. In particular environment, it's meaningless. But I've had suicide cases that have not been altered and the body hadn't been touched. Then it's good for that.
Right. Thank you for clearing that up, Ed. And you explain stuff in such layman's terms that everybody understands it, and that's what's great about this. So I encourage everybody in the chat who's here to consider subscribing to this community. Crime Time at DutyRon and Ed Wallace is nothing but good fact-based information from the investigator's perspective. Ed's a retired first-grade New York City police detective with over 15 years of experience in the crime scene unit. He continues with his business, teaching all law enforcement across the country on the state, local, and federal levels. I mean, Ed is just a tremendous asset to the true crime community. And those of you who are out there who have questions or have misinformation, you can always leave comments down below, because Ed is a wizard at scanning the comments. As a matter of fact, Ed sometimes reports to me to comments that I miss. It's like, hey, did you see this comment? So I have Ed keeping me in check, right?
Hey, yeah. Well, hey, I'm seeing some other things here. I just want to clarify something. I'm talking about gunshot residue on hands. I'm not talking about gunshot residue around the entrance wound. Okay, that should still be there. Okay, and that in the angle of the residue pattern on the scalp and the hair, and the whether it was close contact to the skin, all these things plus will help with the self-inflicted gunshot wound ruling and the trajectory of the path of the bullet through the skull, if it exited the skull and then grazed Casey. All of that can be determined at the autopsy and so forth.
Right. And if Casey, let's just say for argument's sake, did take that gun and shoot her with it, there would be pretty clear and concise evidence that he did do that. If he took it in his hand, put it up to her head as the cops were closing in on him, and did one of these. Let me go so everybody can see me. And did one of these. Oh. I mean, there should be clear and concise evidence.
Right. Well, there's going to be if there's going to be a gap like that between the muzzle and the target, and say the side of her skull, it'll have a different gunshot residue pattern on her hair and the scalp, and then you would know that there would be a distance that could not be achieved by self-inflicted. So you wouldn't be able to stretch your arm out far enough to do something like that.
Yeah.
But there would be evidence in that case, there would be evidence that it wasn't self-inflicted. So,
right.
In any case, I think we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up. Timmy Acosta was in the chat. I want to say thank you to him, because if it wasn't for Timmy Acosta, you and I wouldn't be friends at this point, because he recommended you to me. So, Timmy, thank you for being here. Live chatters, replay viewers. Somebody sent a message that was pretty funny, and we're going to wrap it up. Before this Curious Irish Angels, Doreen Dunlap, and I know we missed some. She asked if you could be called to active duty, and would you, Darlene Dunlap?
To me?
Yeah.
No, I can't be called to active duty, but I can be hired as a consultant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Curious Irish Angels, didn't she also state in the emergency call that she had her hand on the trigger? We didn't hear that, but we heard the 911 operator say that.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Ed's working the switchboard, but he has to go because he's going to pick up his beautiful new daughter that he's going to get.
My new fur baby.
Fur baby. That's going to be your little girl. That's going to be your baby girl.
That's the only girl I have in my family now, other than I have two boys, and now I have a lady.
Yeah, there you go. All right, listen, we want to say thank you to each and every one of you for joining. And again, our hearts and our prayers go out to the victims in Buffalo, New York, of that mass shooting that happened yesterday at about 2:30 in the afternoon. So Ed and I, the whole entire Crime Time with DutyRon community, send our thoughts, prayers to the victims, the community, and all the folks up in Buffalo, New York. My sister went to school at Buffalo University, and I think Bill Cannon went there too. So again, enjoy your Sunday afternoon. As Ed and I like to say, God bless the world. Well, I like to say it. God bless the United States of America. God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially all victims of crime and their families. We want to say prayers for them and send them strength and positive vibes. Ed?
All right. Be safe.
Watch your six.
Be prepared. Watch your six. That's it.
Thank you, guys, and thank you to the replay viewers. We love you. And the super thanks, we love those super thanks. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for engaging. Peace from New York.